Hello, everyone. This is Jeff and Anna.
Hello, this is Anna.
So we are doing something a little different and that we're not used to. I literally just had to stop myself from saying welcome or welcome back to our pod because you're about to hear me say that in a minute. So when we were recording this episode, Treme, we were not aware that this was going to be our last episode of the month. We're about to go on a cruise. We're about to go on vacation, and we very quickly realized we're not going to be able to really edit or upload any episodes because we're going to be out in the middle of the ocean in the Gulf of Mexico. And
Yes.
so we were just like, okay, well, we're going to be skipping a week. So now we need to, what we always do at the end of the month with the episode our last episode of the month, we talk about what is going to be going on in April for the next month, and it's a really fun month, a really fun theme.
It's very fun.
So at the end of the episode, you're gonna hear us sign off, and then at the end of the episode, we'll be back with another little snippet where we're gonna be talking about what you can expect in April.
Yeah. So when we end, Treme, don't sign off.
Yeah.
Stay for a few extra seconds or so to hear what's coming up in April, also known as Anna Month.
I'm so excited.
I am so excited.
All right. Well, we'll be back in a minute. We'll a little bit more than a minute because we talked for a really long time
About
for
Treme.
It's
a good one.
It got really emotional. It gets really emotional. You're about to listen to it. It gets really emotional. We both get a little misty-eyed.
But in a good way.
It's a very emotional talk, but it was a really great episode. Once again, this whole experience is so cathartic for both of us. It's like free therapy. So yeah, just stick around for at the end of the episode. We'll be back to tell you what to expect for Anna Month.
Yeah.
Enjoy the episode. Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. This day's gone by really fast.
You think?
Yeah.
I feel like it's dragged on. Oh my gosh, this whole time change.
Oh, I feel like this day has just flown by. I don't know. You think it's dragged on?
Yeah, well, I don't know. What time is it? 7:15?
7:30.
Oh, I don't know.
All day you've been like, oh my God, I can't believe it's this time. Oh my God, I can't believe it's this time.
That's true. Like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know.
I feel like out of nowhere we came home and it was like 4 o'clock or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And it felt like, I don't know.
Craziness.
The day's just gone by really fast.
Yes.
And, yeah, so what's going on with you?
Work, packing for our vacation, trying to get through this week. We're now down to a hand, 5 more days until vacay.
So excited.
We have a busy day tomorrow. I am technically off. I have a personal day.
Nice.
We have dental appointments. We have the same dentist, so we try to book appointments at the same time back to back. Then we're going to go see Funny Girl at the Sanger in New Orleans.
Yes.
So it's kind of fitting of the show that we're doing today since we're going to New Orleans tomorrow.
That is very true. So today we are continuing our theme for the month, which is TV shows that are named after U.S. cities, U.S. destinations. Technically, I don't think...
This is a neighborhood.
This is the name of a neighborhood, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily a destination. I mean, it is everywhere is a destination, but...
Yeah. But people stay here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, today we are doing the show Treme, which it is named after a neighborhood in New Orleans. And, of course, Anna's New Orleans native. We're both Louisiana natives, southern Louisiana natives. And it's kind of all about the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. So this is something that's very, very personal for us. And we're going to have a lot to talk about. We both have a lot of stories that have to do with Hurricane Katrina, and we both had very different experiences with it because you you weren't here, but your mom was in New Orleans
Yes.
and I was in Baton Rouge, but so we'll talk about all that in a minute, but for now, Anna's just going to give us some episode and series information.
All right, Treme, do you know what it means? Treme was an American drama series that ran on HBO from April 11th, 2010 to December 29th, 2013 for 4 seasons with a total of 36 episodes. The series was created by David Simon and Eric Overmyer. Simon and Overmyer met while working on Homicide, Life on the Street, and The Wire. Simon and Overmyer also co-wrote the pilot, and it was directed by Agnieszka Holland, who also worked on The Wire with Simon and Overmyer. The series takes place in Treme, a neighborhood in New Orleans. It begins 3 months after Hurricane Katrina, while the residents try to rebuild their lives, homes, and unique culture. The main cast includes Candy Alexander as LaDonna Baptiste Williams, a local tavern owner, Rob Brown as Delmond Lambro, an aspiring musician, Kim Dickens as Janelle Desautel, a chef struggling to keep her restaurant open, John Goodman as Creighton Burnett, an English professor who works at Tulane University, Michael or Michelle?
I think it's Michelle.
Michelle Huisman as Sonny, a street musician from Amsterdam, Melissa Leo as Tony Burnett, a civil rights lawyer and Creighton's wife, Lucia Miccarelli, I think it's Miccarelli, as Annie Tallarico, a classically trained violinist and Sonny's girlfriend. Clark Peters as Albert, Big Chief Lambro, a well-respected Mardi Gras Indian chief, and Delman's father. New Orleans native Wendell Pierce as Antoine Baptiste, a trombonist and LaDonna's ex-husband, and Steve Zahn as Davis McAlery, a volunteer DJ and aspiring musician. Treme received positive reviews from critics, audiences, and New Orleans residents. The show was praised for its cast, music, and writing. It went on to get nominated for 6 Primetime Emmys, in which it won for sound mixing. You can currently watch the entire series on Max.
So you watched this show when it originally aired?
Yes. Yeah, I remember it being a big deal.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me look at the date.
2010.
2010. I actually think this might have also been a show I had heard about doing castings for. My original real casting was for American Horror Story. This one just might have been like random things in like the Times-Picayune, like they need people to like be on the street or be in the French Quarter or something. But I never went to go and be in Treme.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, I remember it filming, and it was here in Louisiana, in New Orleans, so it was a big deal. I think especially because this was only about 4 to 5 years after Katrina, that people were wanting the city to come back. I mean, New Orleans tourism is its biggest industry.
Yep.
So, I mean, they were wanting people to come back, to visit, to vacation, all the things. So, yeah.
Did you watch the show in its entirety?
Yeah. No, probably. I probably watched maybe seasons 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I watched 3 and 4.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't answer your question.
You did, though.
Okay. I know I ramble sometimes, so.
You full on answered my question.
Okay.
I don't know why you're up on. Okay. Yeah, so what did you, like, what is your, from what you've seen at least, what's like your opinion of this show?
Oh, I mean, it's kind of funny because one other thing that I have to also mention about the show, the Steve Zahn character, is based on an actual classmate of mine from high school who graduated in the class ahead of me at Franklin. His name was Davis Rogan. I'm not going to say like we were close friends or anything like that. We were not. I mean, I knew him. He may have known who I was. But that was also the buzz amongst my high school friends. Like that was also how I had heard about it. It was like on our alumni Facebook page or emails and newsletters, like this show is coming out and it's based on one of our alums. So I think that also kind of gave it the buzz that we were hearing. I liked it.
Yeah.
I moved back the summer after Hurricane Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
I moved back in July of 2006. I visited New Orleans. At the time, I didn't know I was moving back in December of 2005. And I just remember just so much being closed because people weren't moved back yet. I mean, New Orleans was really shut down from September. Katrina happened on August 29th. And electricity was out. Water system was not good. My mom had to evacuate. We'll talk about that. But people didn't start coming back until like December, early 2006. So I remember like businesses starting to try to open again and restaurants trying to reopen. But it's hard to open a business like that, a bar, a restaurant, anything like that, when there's no one to come to them.
When there's no tourism,
So I remember the show and kind of remembering it being that way.
Yeah.
Because the show takes place 3 months after Katrina, and I moved back about 9 months or so after Katrina, 9-10 months about after Katrina.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
What about you?
I liked it. I liked it, and I would continue watching it mostly because of the cast and the setting and the number of episodes. Anytime there's like a full season, a full series that has like less than 50 episodes, I'm like, okay, I can watch that.
Yeah.
It's always super easy. And the episode, despite this pilot that was an hour and 15 minutes long, went by really fast.
There was a lot going on.
It didn't drag on, but I think also there might be just more interest from me because I'd never watched the show before, and because of, how strongly connected we are to this show, because while I didn't live in New Orleans, I did grow up, born and raised in Baton Rouge, and I did experience Hurricane Katrina.
You did.
The hurricane and the aftermath. We weren't devastated like New Orleans was, but we were devastated in a different way. But I'll get to that in a second. I'll talk about the show. So I'm always like, when it comes to shows that are set in the South and people that live in the South, I'm always immediately kind of wary of it.
Oh, because they're going to make us look stupid?
Well, it's not necessarily they're going to make us look stupid. I mean, yeah, that is a lot of what happens, at least like in comedy films and TV shows that are set in the South. It's, for me, it is kind of like the really... So everyone in the South sounds like Blanche Devereaux, and it really, or Scarlett O'Hara, like these very like 19th century Georgia accents that everyone thinks
with
we talk like.
Draws, like we all talk like this.
And people, there's a movie from the 90s called The War, and it's set in like 1970 Mississippi. And they made Elijah Wood sound like Scarlett O'Hara. Like it was.
Oh my gosh.
But then you had like Lucas Black, who's from the South, and all these other local kids that were cast from the South, and they all sound like they're from Mississippi or in Alabama. But then you have Kevin Costner, Mayor Winningham, and Elijah Wood, who sound like they're from Gone with the Wind.
Right.
And it was just so, and that's always been kind of like since I watched that movie, I'm like, I know zero people that talk like that. Like I know zero people that sound like that.
It's like Dennis Quaid in the movie The Big Easy when he's like, "Shut."
And then when people try to do the Cajun accent and the Louisiana accent, they sound like Pepe Le Pew. I mean, they sound like French.
Oh yeah, shut, baby.
It's almost like an offensive French accent, but they're saying no, I'm Cajun because I'll say "cher" and "cherie" and all that stuff.
Give me some crawfish at the back
and then
porch.
I remember when Wes and I saw the Louis Armstrong musical at the Sanger, which so much of that is set in New Orleans, and the references in New Orleans, and of course we were in New Orleans, so like any type of Louisiana reference, the crowd would just start cheering. And like, I don't know, to me it's just a little bit of pandering. It's like I'm glad that we're proud of where we're from and we're, enriched in all this culture, but like literally all this dude had to say was alligator and the crowd would just start cheering. And I'm just like, oh my God. I'm just like, anyway, so I'm always like a little wary of stuff that's set in the South, but this did a really good job. I like it when I really enjoy it when something is set in the South in a large city and people don't have Southern accents, because that's usually how it is in the cities, at least in the South, in the big cities. I mean, it's like I don't have a Southern accent. You
Yeah.
don't have a Southern accent. 90% of the people that I know don't have Southern accents. It's the people that are from smaller towns or certain regions of the South. But I was born and raised by my, mom's from Memphis, my dad's from North Carolina. I didn't grow up in a typical Southern Louisiana family.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that, like, it didn't overdo it. The accents, if anyone had an accent, it felt like either they had the accent or they like actually did some research.
Yeah.
Or they like actually like tried to develop an accent. But I didn't notice it in this. I didn't really notice it at all. If anyone had an accent, they did a really good job because I didn't notice it. But just like kind of the culture of Southern Louisiana and New Orleans, I feel like they captured that very well. I didn't feel like it was over the top or like a caricature version of what we do down here, and I appreciated it. I thought it was done very respectfully. It didn't feel like they were trying to capitalize on a tragedy by making a TV show about it. It really felt like they wanted to tell these people's stories, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I definitely got that too. I didn't feel like they were trying to make you feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
They were really trying to show you, like, this is what we went through, and this is what we're trying to do to come out of it.
Exactly. All right, so you were living in Seattle during Hurricane Katrina?
Yes, I was.
But you were born and raised in the West Bank, and your mom was still in the house when you knew that the hurricane was hitting. Do you want to talk about kind of what that experience was?
Sure.
Dealing with your mom?
Yes.
I don't mean that in a mean way, but you know what I mean.
Oh, it's always fun dealing with Mercedes.
It's an ordeal.
So, I mean, as you know, with hurricanes, if you don't know, usually you kind of start hearing about them. Hurricane season is June 1st through November 30th of each year. And, usually hurricane season, June to July, is relatively quiet in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And so you start sort of watching a hurricane as it gets into the Caribbean until it starts hitting, or you start seeing the patterns hit like Puerto Rico, Cuba, all of those, like the British Virgin Islands and all of that area of the Caribbean. And then, hits the fan when you start seeing the spaghetti models say that it's going to go to the Gulf, and then everyone starts sort of going, all right, where is it going? Is it going to Texas? Is it going to Louisiana? Is it going to the panhandle of Florida, West Coast Florida? Where is it going? So by around Wednesday or Thursday, I think people knew it was coming to Louisiana. Like all the predictions were saying it was coming this direction. And just keep in mind, many hurricanes have hit. I have slept through hurricanes.
Yep.
My parents survived Betsy, Camille, which were pretty massive hurricanes.
Yeah.
And so my mom was just still very much the essence of like, nah, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be good. So by Friday, my sister had freaked out enough. She lived in Lafayette, and my brother was in Houston. No, I take that back. My sister was in Houston, and as well as my brother.
Gotcha.
So they were both in Houston. Sorry, timeline was wrong. My sister was the one who was probably most in contact with my mom, begging her to come to Houston. Like, get in the car.
Yes.
It's not bad on the interstate yet. It's a 4.5-5 hour drive from New Orleans. Just come here. And if nothing happens, you got to see us and, Patrick, my brother, and my sister for a long weekend or something. And my mom, as of Friday, was going to go to my sister's house. We were all like, yes. All right. Good job. Like, Mom, get in the car, pack a suitcase, grab some papers, and go. Saturday morning, my mom had called my sister, and it changed her mind because our neighbor, his name is Frank, and his wife, Maureen, had decided to stay. And they lived 2 houses over from us. And my mom was like, well, if Frank and Maureen stay, I'm going to be fine.
Okay.
And that was her logic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So my mom calls my sister and it's just like, I'm not coming. I'm just going to stay. If things get bad, then I'll drive. Then I'll come. My mom had gone to the ATM. Her car was gassed up. So she felt fine. So my sister didn't call me that Saturday. And I was still under the assumption that my mom was driving to my sister's because this was like 2005.
Yeah.
I probably still had like a flip phone at this point. We didn't have like Blackberries and all like the technology that we had.
I had a Sony Ericsson phone and it was like
so
tiny.
It was like, again, and I was probably on limited minutes, which I know sounds crazy, but anyway, that's how it was. So Sunday morning, my phone at my house, my landline in Kent, Washington rings, and it's my sister, and she is like freaking out. Oh my God, mom's not coming.
I was about to say rightfully so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So by this point on Sunday, Mayor Ray Nagin, City Council, emergency responders are all on the news going like, get out. It is coming. End of times.
Yeah.
We can't help you. They've opened the Superdome. I mean, hell is all breaking loose. And so like, but mind you, this is at about 4 or 5 o'clock my time because I'm 2 hours behind. So I'm like, what is happening? I was like, when did mom decide not to come to Houston? I was, because they hadn't told me.
Yeah.
And so Rebecca's like, you were the only one mom will listen to. You were the baby. You know, I've called her. Sess has called her. My brother. She is adamant on staying in the house. So at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm calling my mom and she's like, hi, Missy. What's I mean, trying to act all like innocent, you know, how parents do. And as I have mentioned on the pod, I never, if ever, talked back to my parents, much less ever cursed at either one of them in the entirety of my life. At this moment, I say to my mom, get in the fucking car and go to Houston. I was at this point livid that my sister had woken me up, but also even more livid that my mom was still in her house.
Right.
So my mom started crying. She's like, you are just cursing at me. I'm like, okay, this is not even what we're talking about
this
right
is
now.
the time
like,
to be cursed at. Yeah.
Yes. I was just like, Mom. She's like, I haven't packed anything. I mean, like every excuse not to go. So I was just like, Mom, get your lockbox of information. I'm like, if the house goes missing, like if it floods, like at least you have papers that say you owned a piece of property here.
Right.
So she packed up like a little overnight bag with like 2 pair of underwear, 2 outfits, some shoes, her lockbox, and goes over to Frank's house, 2 houses down, to tell him, I'm going to Houston. Frank and Maureen go, well, would you mind taking our mothers with you? So
I'm making a face to this reaction right now.
So imagine, Frank at the time, I mean, I'm trying to think of how old my mom was at the time. I don't remember. So 20 years ago. So she was in her early 70s. So imagine, like, these are 2 like 80, 90-year-old women that Frank and Maureen, our neighbors, have asked for my mom to take as her cargo with her to escape, to evacuate. My mom, under immense pressure and guilt, is like, okay. I've also didn't mention that one of them was dying of cancer.
Oh my God.
Yes. So my mom...
stressing me out.
Yes. So my mom gets in the car, lets them pack whatever they need to pack. They pack some drinks, some food, their clothes. They all get in the car and my mom tries to go over the bridge and go west to Houston. But by this point on Sunday, I-10 was a parking lot. Yeah. Like total like gridlock.
Yeah.
Black on Google Maps time. Like there was no moving. And so they decide to go east towards Slidell. Now, Frank and Maureen, Frank's son, actually has a farm in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Okay.
And Frank had told my mom, like, if you can't go west, go east. Here is Dominic's phone number.
Yeah.
Like, this will be somewhere you can go.
Hey. Yeah.
I had actually also had friends from college offering my mom to evacuate. Like, so many people were offering. So they decided to go east, which was still moving, because going east, you could go to Florida, you could go up.
There were other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they end up, it takes about 7 hours for them to get to Hattiesburg.
Oh my God.
Which is normally like
an hour
a 2 hour drive.
Hours. Yeah, okay. I was about to say an hour and a half.
Especially the way my mom drove. But I mean, again, you're talking about like gridlock traffic.
Right.
So this was about a 2 hour drive that took my mom and these two ladies 7 hours to do. In the heat of August.
Yeah.
One is in the back seat, sadly. I mean, I'm not dissing her for having cancer, of course.
Right.
It's just the situation.
She's in the back dying of cancer.
Yes, she is throwing up, asking my mom to go faster.
Poor lady.
So emotional.
I know.
So they get to Hattiesburg. Katrina happens, and we lose contact.
Yeah.
Because everything was down.
Right.
Like all cell towers, power, water. And so Monday, we knew the hurricane had hit. But at that point in the morning, it was still sort of fine.
Right.
So I literally had to teach at one of the law schools at Seattle University that day. And I was in touch with my sister, and they were trying to get in touch with Dominic in Hattiesburg, but no one could get in touch with him because, again, like, everybody's phone lines were down.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
So we were trying to call, but no one could get in touch with anyone. So I go to Seattle U to do my class and to do computer lab time, visiting with students, just, again, trying to take my mind off of it and kind of keep track of the news. And this was post 9/11 when like news was on like nonstop.
Right.
I mean, I just remember like after 9/11, you could literally watch news 24/7.
Yep.
And so I remember sitting in the computer lab, and again, I'm in the Pacific Northwest. People who are not used to kind of really natural disasters other than earthquakes. And I remember a student being like, oh my God, the people in the South are so stupid. Like, why would you stay there if you knew the hurricane was coming? And I was like, I mean, my employee that was sitting next to me was like, remain calm.
Yeah.
Like, because they knew I was from New Orleans. They knew I was freaking out. And I was like, I put like my sign down that I usually had, like Anna's office hours. So I put my sign down and I was like, okay, I'm just going to tell you something. And I just proceeded to rip this kid a new one. I was like, you just don't know what happens. I'm like, people don't have cars. People don't have anywhere to go. People don't have money. People don't have a lot of friends and family that, that they could go to. And I mean, a lot of New Orleans is one of the biggest cities in the country with multi-generational families that live together. So sorry, I'm getting emotional because I just think about my mom. Yeah. And so I just remember I was like, I've got to go. I walked out of the computer lab and my employee was like, just go. And so I just remember that I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm not the rep right now. I'm Anna from New Orleans. Right. And my mom, at the time I was being semi-dramatic, but not really, because I was like...
Doesn't sound like you're being dramatic at all.
I was like, and my mom is missing. I was like, I haven't talked to her in 24 hours.
Right.
So I just remember going home and waiting. And then I think we finally heard, like maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, they had gotten word to Frank that they had made it. We knew they were there, right? Because I think, they had let us know, but we had heard that like Hattiesburg, I mean, the farm was fine where they were, but again, they were stuck.
Right.
And so
at least they were safe,
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes. But, again, resources were just diminished. I mean, everyone had gone crazy, shopping, gas. Oh, yeah. And so Frank had another son that lived in Lafayette where my godmother lived. And so my mom had decided, so like this was like maybe by like Wednesday or Thursday, that she wanted to go to Lafayette to my godmother's house where she sort of felt more comfortable. My godmother was like,
Yeah.
just get here. But by this point, again, you know, my mom didn't have a lot of gas.
Yeah.
And so she was scared to get on the road. And Frank's son or daughter, I don't remember which one, met them like halfway. They had managed to get gas in Lafayette from somewhere and met my mom, I'm going to make it up, like in Hammond or somewhere on their way west, and filled up my mom's car. They got to Lafayette, to my godmother's house. And she left the Maureen and Frank's moms in Hattiesburg with their grandson.
Right.
So my mom made it to Lafayette, and then of course she stayed with my godmother for a couple of days, and then of course I want to think Don and Rebecca, or Rebecca and Patrick, drove to...
How old was Patrick at this time?
Like 15.
Okay.
He was 15. Drove to Lafayette and then drove my mom back, because by this point my mom was suffering from like major PTSD. I mean, you know, just the hurricane, the two ladies in the car, the 7-hour drive, white knuckling it. I mean, I remember like my mom was just never really the same after Hurricane Katrina. Like, she would talk about her arms hurting so much because like it was so tense driving in the traffic and bumper to bumper. And
I can't imagine.
I just imagine driving in traffic just normally, and I get stressed out, much less evacuating a hurricane.
It's like when we're driving back from Biloxi or Galveston or something, and it's raining the whole time. It's like by the time we get home, like whoever's driving, like our shoulders are like, we're like, we need to be soaked in Bengay right now.
Yeah. So by this point, it's September, of course, because that was August 29th that Hurricane Katrina hit. So my mom ended up staying with my sister through September. And then she still could not go back to New Orleans because there was still no power. And so another funny story in between that, before she comes to stay with me and the stories with me, is that as many people remember, because there was no power, a lot of people's refrigerators became like infested mold and disgusting because there was no power, and everything that was left in it became like toxic. Well, my mom had left Frank and Maureen a key to the house. And like after 2 days of no power and no power in sight, Frank and Maureen had gone to clean out my mom's refrigerator.
Good people. Yeah.
And I remember when Frank told my mom this story, my mom was like, oh my God, they threw away like all my good food.
That's such a mom thing.
I know. Well, it's definitely a third world country thing.
Right.
Like, you know, food was, and my dad being a cook, food was a hot commodity. And so I remember my mom being mad. And so, so remember that. Okay. So my mom is with my sister for a month, and she's like, I need a change. I need to come somewhere else. So will you come get me? I legit flew from Seattle to Houston to go get my mom because she didn't want to fly by herself. She was still like just traumatized.
Yeah.
I flew in to Hurricane Rita.
Got it.
And so I remember landing in Houston and looking out the plane window, and like Houston was gridlocked with people evacuating.
Oh, goodness.
And so I got my mom. The next day we flew back out of Houston back to Seattle. And so my mom spent the next 4 weeks with me in October. So this was just crazy because I was living in my house now in South Seattle in Kent, Washington. And my mom didn't want to be alone, but I mean, I still had to work. So anywhere I went that wasn't in Seattle, my mom flew with me. I would get her a plane ticket to come with me.
Yeah.
So I have some funny stories. So one of them was we drove to Portland, Oregon once, and I remember telling her about like all the homeless kids that would try to pander to her, and she's like, "Oh, I can tell them I don't have any money, that I'm poor from Katrina." And then she also flew with me. We were going to go to Spokane and Tomasco, Idaho. And in the airport, our flight was really delayed. And all I remember was this guy in front of me and my mom that was trying to rebook was like really, really mean to the ticket agent and was screaming at her. And when me and my mom got up to the counter to try to rebook, she was like, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? Like, we can't get you to Spokane today. And I was like, whatever. I said, but can you hook us up with like a free like voucher for another flight somewhere else? And she's like, yes. She's like, thank you for just not screaming at me.
Right.
So me and my mom got free tickets, but we then rebooked, went to Spokane. And when we went to Moscow, I remember going to teach at the University of Idaho Law School. And I dropped my mom off at like a little strip mall that had like a TJ Maxx or a Ross or something.
Yeah.
And I said, just shop for like an hour and a half and then just sit like on this little bench. And when I'm done at the law school, because Moscow is like a really small town.
Right.
I was like, I'll come back and get you. So just sit here. Don't go anywhere. And so I go teach at the law school. I come back and my mom is sitting on this bench outside of like the TJ Maxx or the Ross, whatever. She probably has like 10 shopping bags, Jeff. I'm like, what the hell? Like, what is going on? And she's like, well, I just told the people in there that I was like a Hurricane Katrina refugee and they all wanted to buy me stuff. And I was like, okay. I was like, could you give them my size too? My mom, and it was really true. My mom, when she evacuated, really truly left with like a weekend
like
bag of clothes,
bag.
her lockbox, and her purse. And you know, I had friends that like sent money. Like my cousin sent like a care package of like toiletries, and people were so generous. But it was hilarious to like pull up to the strip mall and see my mom just sitting on the bench with like 10 shopping bags.
At first, before you said the thing about her talking about that, and you said the 10 shopping bags, I'm like mother, like daughter. But
yeah. So that was one of my funny stories. And then with our free vouchers, again, so she was with me for over a month. I was like, let's go to Vegas. So we went, we had, and one of her cousins actually lived in Las Vegas. So we also saw him. He was the butler at the Rio.
Oh, okay. And
cool. So we went to Vegas for a weekend. I don't even remember where we stayed. I think we stayed at like, you know, the old Aladdin or some like off-site hotel.
Circus.
No, wouldn't have been that. But so my mom with me, I was counting all the states she went to post Katrina. So she went from New Orleans to Mississippi. So from Louisiana, Mississippi to Texas to Washington. She also went to Oregon, to Idaho, and to Nevada with me. She was in 7 states.
We got a jet set Mercedes.
I know, where I get my travel bug from. So then I think I might have just put her on the plane by this point alone to come back to Houston because her car was still at my sister's. Gotcha. And they were all going to drive her because she knew that the house was okay. Yeah. Frank was still at his house with Maureen. Right. And so I remember they drove there after Halloween in November to go and open the house. And our massive pecan tree that had been there for 40 years had fallen and had like literally just missed the house. Like if it had landed on the house, our house would have been destroyed. Right. But, you know, my dad was looking out and saved the house. But I remember them telling the story of when they were driving into New Orleans and into the West Bank where my mom lives, that all the refrigerators on all the neutral grounds were all taped up. That was like very famous pictures of all the refrigerators with duct tape wrapped around them because they were all toxic. Yep. I remember that. People coming back to clean. When she got to her house, she still had a working refrigerator. I mean, it needed to be cleaned out again, obviously, because it had not been in use for 2 months. But I just remember she was like, okay, I'm not mad at Frank anymore. Right. After 2 months, yeah, after the 2 months, after she saw like, you know, because I mean, that was also a big deal was like, you know, people, you know, couldn't find refrigerators because the stores ran out of them and getting them into town. And I remember also something had happened to maybe her washer or her dryer, and so she had to get a new one, and it took a long time to get one, which is a luxury we take for granted.
Yep.
So Katrina really obviously stuck with her, and it is the 20-year anniversary this year of Katrina 2025. So I imagine in August some crazy things will be happening. Not crazy, but the memorials and all the everything that had happened. So that was like the story. I'm sure I'm probably leaving so much out, but I mean, there's so much to say.
Well,
but, I think the saddest thing for me about Hurricane Katrina, particularly for my mom, was that a lot of her friends, when they evacuated, they didn't come back because their children, wherever they had evacuated to, were like, just stay here.
Yeah.
And thus, like, a lot of like the programs that she did, like the YMCA, like didn't really last much longer. She had a program called Golden Ages that, they would play cards and bingo and like she had a big group of friends that did that, and her quilting club disbanded. So that was, to me, one of the sad things was a lot of like the activities, particularly for the seniors, were disbanded and never restarted again. And so I think, not that my mom needed a reason to play bingo so much, but that was a reason I think that she really, really started the bingo.
Oh, yeah.
Like that, because it was like really one of the only activities. Yeah. She had like a church group that she did stuff with, but again, it's a church group. It's not like that they do a ton of stuff. And, again, I think the people at bingo kind of became her friend group. And, and they obviously
definitely.
Bingo happens every day, 3 times a day. So it was something she could do. And
she loved going to that place.
Oh yeah. So
that was when I met your mom.
Yeah, exactly.
When we went to the Gretna Bingo.
So that was probably the kind of post Katrina effect that it really, really had on my mom and her social life and the friends that just never moved back. So So what is your Katrina story?
Okay, well, I was soon to be 21. I was 20 years old. Okay. And I was working at Applebee's at the time. That was my first official kitchen
The one
job,
on Sherwood and Coursey?
where El Paso is now.
Gotcha.
And is that what it's called? El Paso? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this was still an era. This is pre-iPhones. This is obviously it's 2005. We have the internet. We have cable. We have all of that. But information was still given to us. You had to turn on the news. You had to
it wasn't the internet.
You couldn't just go. You couldn't just go on your phone because that wasn't. I guess technically some phones had internet back then, but I didn't.
If you had fancy phone,
you had the handheld, the Palm Pilots or something like that, which weren't phones. From my memory, at least, they were just internet devices.
Yes.
And only people I knew that had those were people who had money. So when I was first told about the hurricane, so unfortunately when you live in a hurricane alley state that we live in southern Louisiana, we've dealt with hurricanes all our lives. It's just a part of it. It's just a part of living down here. Sometimes what usually happens 99% of the time is the hurricanes that everyone thinks are going to be brutal end up being nothing, and the ones that people think that are going to be nothing end up being brutal.
Yes.
And that's what ends up happening. I remember everyone being really worried about... I remember people not being that worried about Hurricane Andrew, and then Hurricane Andrew being so much worse than it actually ended up being, and that was in 92. So information was even harder to get to back then.
Yeah.
So my understanding was that this wasn't going to be that big of a deal. The Hurricane Katrina wasn't. It was going to be... I don't even remember what the category was at the time. Was it 3?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
to be
so
honest.
I literally was just on the Wikipedia page, but I was looking for what the name of the other hurricanes were around that time. So my preparation for it, I was living at my mom's house in Azalea Lakes, but it was just me that was living there. My mom was contract nursing, and my sister had moved into her own apartment. And I remember my dad and my stepmom were like, do you want to stay at our house while during the hurricane? I'm 20 years old. Like, I am in like full party mode at this point in my life. Like, I am going out every night. I am living the restaurant life of getting off at midnight and then going to a bar until 3 o'clock in the morning and then sleeping all day and then repeat. You know what I mean? I was at that era in my life.
Yeah.
So it ended up being, since I had a house to myself, I had a group of friends that ended up staying the night during Katrina, but to us it was just going to be one night. Like, we just thought it was
because they lived in like a trailer and thought
I had Blake, I had Steven, who was the one who came here, bought the TV.
Yeah.
I had Ryan Seaver, and then I feel like there was one more person, and then there was my friend Allison who worked at Applebee's with us, and she lived kind of in the mid-city area, and so she like always lost power, so she was just like, I want to be somewhere at least with other people.
Yeah.
If I lose power, but like
kind of like Alicia or your
right.
mom with us.
And so and we were all friends, like we all knew each other, we were all friends, so it wasn't like she, didn't know anybody. So we all went over to my house. We went to Albertsons by my mom's house, and went and got groceries. I remember the store being pretty bare, but we were like, okay, we got all these groceries. Let's get, we were too kind of young and dumb to like fully realize, like, because I remember they didn't have bread. They didn't have like a lot of things that didn't need to be cooked. And so they were out of a lot of that. So we just kind of got what we could. And so the hurricane hits, and I remember slept through it. I slept through I slept through the hurricane. And I woke up the next day. We didn't have power, so therefore we couldn't cook anything. And I believe we had maybe like some sandwich stuff or like something. I remember having stuff that we were able to eat. Maybe it was like chips or snacks or something like that, processed foods. So our power was out, and the power was out at my mom's house for like 3 days or something like that. It wasn't that bad, but other places in Baton Rouge didn't have power for like a week or two. So it was like, there were places in Baton Rouge that did not have power for a while. So by the time, we didn't know what was going on in New Orleans. Like, we had no idea what was going on in New Orleans. And by the time I got power and I got everything back on, going to the news, New Orleans had been destroyed. And so I was
broke later morning.
We had no idea that was happening. And so it was just like, it's one of those things where like you have something going on and then you have no idea that like something so terrible is happening like so close to you.
Yeah.
And it was just, I remember like seeing the news footage, and I just remember like all of us just started crying. We were just like so like appalled by this, because like when you grow up in Baton Rouge, New Orleans is like the hot older sister. It's like the place that like you want to go to. It's the place that like, it's where all the festivals were. It's where all the concerts were. It's where all the Mardi Gras parades were, at least the good ones. No offense to the ones in Baton Rouge, but like,
yeah, the big ones.
You go Bacchus, Muses, all of those like great parades that you go to. And like I said, the concerts, you go to the Sanger, you go to Twiropa, Voodoo Fest and City Park. Like, we all loved New Orleans. It was just this place of escape that you got to go to. And it was like a nonstop party. And it was only like an hour away. So it was just to us, it was like New Orleans was always like this magical place where you could walk on the streets with your alcohol, where you could party until 6 o'clock in the morning at a bar, where you could go to Voodoo Fest my memories of Voodoo Fest are some of like my fondest memories of like my youth, of like being at City Park and experiencing New Orleans life and New Orleans culture and discovering all these bands that I didn't know about. And that was the first time I saw like all of these like New Orleans bands. I even saw the Rebirth brass band that like that the band is based on that Antoine is in.
Yeah.
I saw them at Voodoo Fest. So it's just like, I just remember watching that episode being like, I've seen them. Just like I saw them at Voodoo Fest like 2 years in a row. So for us, it was just devastating, because it was like, it was equivalent, and this may sound dramatic, but it was like the equivalent of like losing a friend. It was just it felt like, because New Orleans we are so proud of being a part. I at least am so proud of being a part of the part of Louisiana culture that celebrates life, and that every, in a positive way, life is just one big party, and it is just one big, everything's a celebration. At a funeral, we celebrate their life. We mourn the loss, but we celebrate their life, and we cherish the memories. And with, all these other things about New Orleans that just make it so special. And I just remember being devastated. And see, now it started happening to me because I'm remembering all of that. And then this is kind of a little later. So the next year, Real World Denver came out. And Coley was a student at Tulane.
Yeah.
Coley Edison was a student at Tulane during Hurricane Katrina, and she had been relocated to another school. And then her sorority, they came back and they were helping with the community, and they were at people's houses, and they found this old couple's wedding dress and wedding suit that they had left behind. And I just remember reliving all of that while watching Real World Denver, and just starting to cry again. It had been a year since that happened, and I wasn't even a New Orleans resident, and it was just I was so deeply affected by it because, like I said, I love that city, and I just love all of the memories. We both knew this was going to happen, so I just have so many memories of just. Ooh, all right. I just have so many memories of being in New Orleans and just loving where I'm at and loving the experience that I'm having, and just to have it taken away in the way that it was taken away, in such a devastating way, not just to just to the people that lived in the city, everyone affiliated with the city, everyone that had a loved one in the city. It was just everyone was just, there was just this period of time where everyone was just so scared, and everyone was just so uncertain of what was going to happen. And so a little bit of time passed, maybe not that long. I went back to work, kind of things went back to normal for me, but then we got an influx of people that had been kind of
displaced.
Kind of displaced and put in Baton Rouge. And it was all of a sudden, when I say we're busy from open to close, we're on a wait from open to close. It was just and we're gonna talk about it a little bit with Kim Dickens' character in the restaurant. It was customer demand was so high, but employment was so low. And for us, it was we had too many people working, and we also had too many customers. So it was just, we had all these transfers from New Orleans and all the surrounding areas working at the restaurant. And it was just it was just a time of just pure chaos. It was gas stations were always full. Convenience stores were always packed. Grocery stores were always running low of stuff or out of stock. And
because Baton Rouge doubled in population,
did.
overnight, literally. There were no houses to be found.
Every day, all day, every day, there was traffic, and it was like that. So I moved to Florida in March of 2006. And there is a part of me that still feels to this day that I left Baton Rouge at that time because it was so chaotic. And I was just I needed to get away. I needed a break from it. And I think that was part of why I moved to Florida. At least a little bit. That was part of why I moved to Florida. But then I remember driving to Florida for the first time. And Florida had gotten hit with Rita.
No, not Rita. Not Rita. Rita hit Texas.
Okay, well, there was another hurricane that had hit Florida. Because I remember another Real World connection. Real World Key West filmed during all of the hurricanes. And so they had gotten hit by one hurricane and then another hurricane, while they were, because that whole season, they were being relocated. They were in Orlando. That was the season with Johnny Bananas and Paula.
Was it Ivan? Because it was all the Russian names.
Yeah.
It was Katrina, Ivan... Rita,
Ivan was 2008.
Oh, okay. I thought that was Gustav. Okay.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, you're right. Hold on, give me a second. Yeah, Hurricane Rita. It's gonna drive me crazy, so I need to look. Yeah, Katrina, Rita, and I feel like there was a third one. Maybe I'm just mistaken.
Was it Wilma?
Maybe. I'd have to rewatch it. Anyway, so Florida had gotten hit by one of the hurricanes. I don't know what they had gotten hit by, but when I was driving I remember driving to Pensacola and going over the Pensacola Bridge, like when you first get into Florida, and the bridge had been demolished and it was being rebuilt. And so I had to, for the first time I ever drove over that like metal gated material where you could see you can see underneath you, like you can see the bottom. I remember that being like the most stressful thing ever. I just remember like driving over it. If you went too fast, you would start kind of like drifting, and so you can only go so fast over it. And it felt like you were driving over a chain link fence. It just felt like at any moment you're just going to fall through, because it just did not. I mean, obviously they built it, cars drove over it all day every day, so obviously it's built to to last. But seeing it, just never experiencing that. I know this is like a kind of a random thing to remember, but I just remember that like being my first experience. And then the first time I went to New Orleans post Katrina was when we went to the reopening of the Hard Rock Cafe in New Orleans. And I just remember, it was in 2006, I just remember it just feeling different and not being the same. And it took a really long time before New Orleans felt like New Orleans again. And and of course, you know, this whole show that we're covering today is all about the rehabilitation and the rebuilding of New Orleans, and that was the whole point. And how but even when I was on Bourbon Street in 2006, there was still those little snippets of people celebrating and people having fun and people partying. So you kind of saw it a little bit, but it just wasn't like how it was pretty much until I remember going in 2012 and going to New Orleans in 2012 for, I think it was for a festival, I think it was for a concert, and it feeling like New Orleans again. And it was just another time where I felt myself getting emotional again, where it was she's back. It was just it took at least for me, because I'd only gone a little bit over time, but 7 years later, it was back to normal. And it was, I don't know how long it actually took, but it was, yeah. What are you looking at?
I think the hurricane was Tammy.
Okay.
That hit the Bahamas and Florida.
Okay, yeah. Because there was one where their house in Key West was destroyed.
Yeah, it hit the Bahamas and Florida.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I did want, are you, is that the end of your story?
Yes.
So I did want to say something positive about Hurricane Katrina, because always on the anniversary, I do always say on Facebook, maybe I haven't done it every year, but I always say Katrina brought me home, which is crazy, because people are like, what? Because I was living in Seattle, and I had been in Seattle at that point for about 7 years.
Yeah.
And so I had actually tried to move back in 2003, and I didn't get that lateral transfer. And I remember when Hurricane Katrina hit, my boss at the time, who denied me the transfer, was like, oh, well, I bet you're glad you're not there. And I literally wanted to punch him in the face, but I didn't. But
you want me to find him? I'll punch him in the face.
Yeah, you will. You'll put pudding in his locker for me.
Is that going to be our thing for the rest of our
Yes,
podcast?
it is. It was the sweetest thing ever.
Did I say pudding?
You did.
Okay.
Because it was high school people that were mean to me, or junior high.
Oh no, I know what it was about.
You said you would put pudding in their locker.
I'm now and thenning it. I couldn't remember if it was Jello or pudding.
It was pudding. So the person who had my job here, her husband was in medical school at LSU Medical School in New Orleans. And obviously because of Katrina, the med school closed for a year. And I think a medical school in Alabama had offered all universities across the country offered students the ability to go to their schools. And so he decided to transfer to Alabama, which is where he and his wife were actually from. So it left the position that I now have open. And when they were going to post for it, Like, no one was applying. They were
Yeah.
like, okay, what crazy person could we get to move to Louisiana right now? And someone,
Hi, my name's Anna.
yeah, the actual manager of the territory called me.
Yeah.
And I remember, because of the issues I had in 2003, not being able to transfer, I said, you need to call my boss and talk to him about it, because he's blocked me from moving in the past. So, I mean, who's to say he wouldn't let me do it now?
Yeah.
So that was in January of 2006.
Okay.
So he agreed to let me go, but I had to like close the school year. I had to stay to May in
Gotcha.
Seattle. So I stayed in May. My sister and my mom and Patrick came and helped me pack up in June, and me and my mom drove home on 4th of July weekend, 2006. So you were moving out in March of 2006, and I moved back home. So I always say Katrina brought me home. So it was the one good thing, because I think I've told you, like, I wonder if Katrina hadn't happened, how long I would have stayed in Seattle.
And
like,
then I can kind of say that Katrina got me Maddie. So, because if Katrina hadn't happened, I don't think I probably wouldn't have left, because of the chain of events that led me to move. Katrina was kind of
the catalyst,
kind of like the driving force that was like paralleling it at the time.
Yeah.
The things that were happening, the series of events that had happened.
Yeah. So I do always say, in the end, Katrina was good. And I was glad I was able to come home to be with my mom, because I ended up being the sibling that was obviously the closest in vicinity to her until she passed away in 2020. Mm-hmm. So, my sister moved between Lafayette and Houston. My brother has been in Dallas, and he had been in Houston for a long time at that point.
Yeah.
But he's always been in Houston. So I was always the closest one to her until 2020. So yeah, Katrina brought me home.
Aw, my tootie.
I know.
All right, we've been talking for a while.
Yeah.
We knew that, like I said, we knew this was going to happen. We have mentally prepared for this.
Yeah.
So
no other questions, so that's it.
No further questions.
None needed.
All right, let's get into this pilot summary.
Let's do it.
All right, Treme pilot summary. 3 months after Hurricane Katrina and the flooding of New Orleans, the city is a disaster zone. Many residents are unable to return to their flood-damaged homes, and the streets are littered with debris. The Rebirth Brass Band. I think that's the actual name.
Yeah,
that's the actual name.
They're still around,
I've seen them. Yes, those are the ones I saw at Voodoo Fest. The Rebirth Brass Band is set to play the first second line parade since the storm. Do you want to say what a second line parade is?
Yeah, a second line is kind of a celebration. They do it like after weddings. Mm-hmm. They usually, will have the umbrellas. They do also have like the second line for like a jazz funeral that follows like the casket that starts very mournful, but then there's a turn in the music that will celebrate the life of the person who has passed. So it's generally a celebratory event.
Thank you, Boo.
You're welcome.
Trombonist Antoine Batiste shows up late and without the funds to pay his cab fare into the city from his temporary residence in Jefferson Parish. The parade is a rousing success, drawing many displaced natives back to the city, for the day at least. That's also just kind of shows the love that people have for their city and for their culture. Everyone that had been displaced, they showed up just for this and then went back to wherever they were displaced. That just shows how much people love New Orleans, how much people love that city.
Yeah.
The second line ends outside Gigi's Lounge, a bar owned by LaDonna Batiste Williams. LaDonna is shocked to see her ex-husband Antoine back in the city. Antoine stays at the bar until things have calmed down, and then makes a pass at his ex-wife. She turns him down, far more concerned that he make more effort with their two sons who are living in Baton Rouge with her new husband. LaDonna has a second unexpected customer, Demetrius Bray, who is in town for the second line. He is a friend of her missing brother, David Maurice Brooks, also known as Damo. She tells him that she has not seen Damo since the storm, and he reveals that they were in police custody together during the hurricane. He explains that they were at Orleans Parish Penitentiary, but were moved onto a bridge when it flooded and were then separated. Yeah, so I forgot about that they were, placing people kind of in these random locations because of flooding. Is it McAllery? Davis McAllery?
Yeah.
Yeah. Davis is energized. Steve Zahn's character, Davis, the one who you went to high school with, is energized by the parade, waking up hungover beside Chef Jeanette Desatel. She is less enamored with him in the cold light of day, criticizing his broken shower and messy apartment.
Yeah.
She heads into work at her restaurant, Desautel's, while Davis joins the parade. Davis enjoys the festivities and returns home, antagonizing his neighbors with loud music before heading to work. David hosts his WWO's...
Davis.
What'd I say?
David.
Okay.
Start over.
Davis hosts his WWOZ radio show, ignoring the station's playlist in favor of a mafia-themed broadcast. Here is where I was going to tell you to talk about Davis, but you already talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I went to high school, and,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I was, like, friends with him, maybe slight acquaintances.
Right.
But, yes, it was the talk of our high school.
Tulane University professor Creighton Burnett is a vocal supporter of the city. He agrees to be interviewed by a British television program, but is enraged by their implication that the city is not worth saving and tries to throw their camera into the river. That was probably my favorite scene of the whole episode.
And that was stuff that really happened. I
Mhm.
mean, Dennis Haysbert, who was in, I think, Congress at the time, was like, why should we pay to have this city that's below sea level?
Yeah.
Like, why should we send money or federal money to them? And I mean, people were like enraged. So, yeah. I mean, those were things that were being said.
His daughter Sophia is both amused by his antics and concerned about his levels of stress. Yeah, it was really funny. The daughter was like kind of loving his reaction, but was also like, Dad, please don't have a stroke.
Right.
Please don't have a stroke on camera. Creighton returns home to his wife, Toni Burnett, played by Melissa Leo. I'm Dying Up Here, another show that we love.
Yeah.
Only to blow a phone interview with NPR in a similar manner. Yeah, it's really funny. He just like the John Goodman yelling. It just will never not be funny for me. He's so good at playing the pissed off guy. Albert Lambro has his daughter Davina drive him back to the city from his temporary residence in Houston. His house is ruined by floodwater, but refuses to return to Houston, instead opting to clear out his local bar. Is it Pokes?
Popes.
Yeah. Davina is worried about him and calls her brother Delman. Delman, a jazz trumpeter, has gigs booked in New York, but agrees to move things around to see if he can help. Albert finds that the water in the bar is still off and goes to his friend Robinette for a shower. Robinette tells him that he is making easy money with his haulage business from FEMA. Yeah. Robinette tells him that he is making easy money with his haulage business from FEMA contracts. Albert asks him for a favor, help clear the trash he has pulled from the bar. Despite Albert citing their shared involvement with Mardi Gras Indian tribes, Robinette refuses to take time away from the lucrative FEMA work. Albert returns that night dressed in his full costume as chief of the Guardians of the Flame Tribe to demand assistance, and Robinette agrees. That was another of my favorite scenes. That was a really great scene. Jeanette finds it difficult to manage her restaurant in the wake of the storm. Customer demand is high, but her staff is a skeleton crew, and sourcing ingredients is extremely troublesome. This is kind of what I'm talking about. Like no one had power. So everyone was going to eat at restaurants, and these people didn't have the resources or the people to keep it afloat. Creighton, it's her sous chef Jacques is her only reliable employee. Creighton and Toni come in for the evening service, and she greets them personally. Creighton turns down lemon ice for dessert, citing loyalty to Bricado's.
Yep.
She gives him, have you ever been to, is Bricado's an actual place?
Yes, it's actually right by Lorian Darnell's old house.
Oh, is it?
In Mid-City.
Oh, awesome.
We can go there. Let's go there.
She gives him a sweet potato Hubix pie from her purse instead. Antoine treks out back to his apartment shared with his girlfriend Desiree and their infant daughter. He is disappointed when she takes his entire fee from the second line to pay for groceries. He heads back into the city the next day looking for another gig. He lands one supporting Kermit Ruffins at Vaughn's. And your sister went to high school?
Yes, with him, maybe his cousin. She was going to look in her yearbook. But yes, so my sister knows him as well, like the real Kermit Ruffins.
Right.
Yeah.
Davis also attends the show and is surprised to see legendary singer-songwriter Elvis Costello in the audience, which was actually Elvis Costello. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He tries to convince Kermit to network with the international star, but the jazz musician is content playing gigs in New Orleans. Antoine heads home with a fuller wallet after the gig, but Desiree reminds him that they are behind on their utility bills. Tony meets LaDonna in a busy cafe. LaDonna tells Tony that she has learned that Damo was in custody just before he disappeared, and Tony agrees to investigate. Tony spots a police contact, Captain Richard
Lafouchette.
in the cafe and approaches him for help. He agrees to give her a list of people who were in custody at the time of the storm. Tony is frustrated that Damo is not on the list and decides to look for evidence. The photo editor gives her access to pictures of the bridge where the prisoners were held, and she finds a couple of shots of Damo. She takes the good news to LaDonna, who confides that she fears that her brother is dead because he has not called since the storm. Tony tries to speak to the Orleans Parish Sheriff about his disappearance, but is stalled by his deputies. After waiting all day to no avail, she returns home, angry at the institution's indifference. Delman arrives in New Orleans as Albert and Robinette are clearing the street outside the bar. He pleads to his father to leave town, but it falls on deaf ears. Albert stubbornly insists that Delman either pitch in or pay the water bill for the bar. Davis tries to reclaim a consignment of his defunct band Uncut Funk's music from the shuttered Tower Records store. Tower Records. He is thrown out by the security guard, but comes back later with his friend Toby to grab them, also taking a few choice jazz discs when he has the chance. Exhilarated, he goes to Jeanette's restaurant. Yeah, he goes to Desautel's to celebrate, opening an expensive bottle of wine without asking. Jeanette is unimpressed with his suggestion that he trade her for the out-of-print jazz collection he stole for the $350 bottle. Yeah, like that's equivalent.
Yeah.
She refutes his assertion that he is her boyfriend and has Jacques throw him out. Antoine books another last-minute fill-in, playing a funeral procession with the Treme brass band. He turns up at the last minute, confirming his $80 fee, and then the funeral procession starts. That's the second line too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. End of episode. Yeah, this is a show. I mean, obviously, this is a show I keep watching, not just for personal reasons, but just because I found it to be just really good.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
I think I fell off of it after like season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I always say too much going on, too
Right.
much TV, travel, work, my mom, who knows what. But yeah, I 36 episodes. I think we could binge it
Easy.
totally.
All right, this was a heavy one. We got through it.
We did.
We're good. We're gonna wrap this up though.
All right.
All
Let's
right,
do it.
Let's wrap up that. Well, that about wraps up this episode of We Judge a Show by its pilot. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can follow us on Instagram at We Judge Pilot Pod. We're also on Facebook. Leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments. You have a lot, I see.
Well, I do. Some of them are kind of funny.
Okay.
Treme emojis, the hurricane emoji.
Well, yeah.
The rain, any of the music ones. So the music notes, the violin, the trumpet, the drum, the guitar, the light bulb to represent electricity, the fleur-de-lis for New Orleans, the shower, the scales because Melissa Leo's character is a lawyer, the radio, water, a pie for the Hugh Big Pie. The umbrella for the second line, the lemon, the cop, any of the houses, the CDs, the wine. I'll also put in a car and a plane for my mom.
Oh, too deep.
And then the heart emojis because we both love New Orleans.
Yes.
All right. Well, we are going to head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We're not crying right now, so we're really happy.
We are very happy.
Maddie's going to be here in about an hour and a half.
Yeah, and
we're
lots planned for today and tomorrow. We are heading out.
Yep, really excited, really excited. So it is the end of the month, and we are going into April, otherwise known as Anna's birthday month.
Yep.
You are my cute little Aries.
Yep, that's
me.
me.
So, of course, we decided, same as October, it's going to be Anna month where she chooses all of the shows, but you kind of decided to do something a little extra fun, a little extra creative.
Yes. So I decided to pick very female-centered shows that the majority of the characters were female based. And as I was picking the shows and we were deciding the order, as I was looking at them, it was kind of weird because a lot of the shows fit somewhat perfectly into various stages of my life of what the show actually covered. And as I was laying them out, you were like, wow, that's really cool. So, and then I think I've inspired you a little bit for your birthday month again in this later this year. But yeah, so the theme is Anna month, but the sub theme is female centered shows, but then also
sub.
The order in which they will come out that month will be somewhat paralleling my life.
Yep.
So
not only is it Anna month, but it's autobiographical.
Yeah, very much.
You're starting off with the beginning, kind of when you were young, and then when you were of a TV show that inspired you when you were a kid, when you became an adult, and then you have your college years, your post-college years.
Law
school, being married, moving into a neighborhood, kind of your first like big house in a neighborhood. Even though when you lived in Washington, you had a house. You lived in a neighborhood,
and that house was probably just as a little crazy in that neighborhood.
Yeah. And we have, and then finally, we have probably probably a show that I think you watched a lot during the pandemic. That's gonna kind of be the last episode, and also a little sadly,
true to life.
Sadly, a little true to life. So yeah, we're really excited. We're pretty much already watched all the shows except for the last one, and I'm really excited. This is one of the first months in a while where every show we watch, we had to limit the amount of questions that we had because we had so many for each.
Oh yeah.
For each show, we're like, oh no, we only have to do like 2 or 3 questions.
Yeah, even like just the show you listened to, I think we had another question and we just decided to leave it off because
we talked for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was going on. So
yeah.
Well, I'm excited for my B-Day month.
I'm really excited too. So next Tuesday, it will be April 4th. Will be our first episode of the month, and it's going to be, let's just go ahead and do a little spoiler. It's going to be Sisters. If you don't remember that show, it's from the early 90s, and it has one of my, I'll just go ahead and say it right now because I'm not going to talk about it a lot on the episode. It has one of my first celebrity crushes, Celia Ward.
Okay, I love her.
And so we're both really excited, and we can't wait to get this started, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and it's almost my birthday.
Happy almost birthday.
Thanks.
All right, y'all. We will see you next Tuesday, and we hope you're having a good day, and we hope you enjoyed Treme.
All right. Thanks for listening.